The Battle of Jonesboro. Stewart's corps was at Atlanta. Lee's corps was between Atlanta and Jonesboro, and Cheatham's corps, then numbering not more than 5,000 men, because the woods and roads were full of straggling soldiers who were not in the fight, was face to face with the whole Yankee army, and he was compelled to flee, fight, or surrender. This was the position and condition of the Grand Army of Tennessee on this memorable occasion. If I am not mistaken, General Cleburne was commanding Cheatham's corps at that time. We expected to be ordered into action every moment and kept seesawing backward and forward until I did not know which way the Yankees were or which way the rebels. We would form line of battle, charge bayonets, and would raise a whoop and yell, expecting to be dashed right against the Yankee lines, and then the order would be given to retreat. Then we would immediately reform and be ordered to charge again a mile off at another place. Then we would march and countermarch backward and forward over the same ground, passing through Jonesboro, away over the hill, and then back through the town. First forward and back, your right hand to your left hand lady, swing half round and balance all. This sort of a movement is called a feint. A feint is what is called in poker a bluff, or what is called in a bully a brag. A feint means anything but a fight. If a lady faints, she is either scared or in love and wants to fall in her lover's arms. If an army makes a feint movement, it is trying to hide some other movement. Hello, Lee. What does Cleburne say the Yankees are doing at Jonesboro? They are fanning themselves? Well, keep up that feint movement until all the boys faint from sheer exhaustion. Hello, Stewart. Do you think you will be able to burn up those 10 locomotives and destroy those 100 carloads of provisions by day after tomorrow? Lee, ask Cleburne if he feels fainty. Ask him how a fellow feels when he faints. Cleburne says, I have fainted, and fainted until I can't faint any longer. Well, says Hood, if you can't faint any longer, you had better flee, fight, or faint. Balaam gets along mighty slow, but I'll be there after a while. At 1 o'clock, we were ordered to the attack. We had to pass through an Osage-orange hedge that was worse than the enemy's fire. Their breastworks were before us. We yelled and charged and hurrahed and said, Boo, boo, we're coming, look out. Don't you see us coming? Why don't you let us hear the cannon's opening roar? Why don't you rattle a few old muskets over there at us? Boo, boo, we are coming, tag. We have done got to your breastworks. Now we tagged first. Why don't you tag back? A Yankee seemed to be lying on the other side of the breastworks, sunning himself, and raising himself on his elbow says, Fool, who with your fatty bread? We are too old a birds to be caught with that kind of chaff. We don't want any of that kind of pie. What you got there wouldn't make a mouthful. Bring on your pudding and pound cake, and then we will talk to ye. General Granberry, who, poor fellow, was killed in the butchery at Franklin afterwards, goes up to the breastworks and says, Look here, Yank, we're fighting, sure enough. Mynheer Dutchman comes out and says, Ish dot so? Well, I ish peen von Liedel pit hungry dish morning, and I is gobble you up for mine lunch before tinner dime. Dot ish der kind of man's vote I bees. Now, reader, that is a fine description of this memorable battle. That's it. No more, no less. I was in it all, and saw General Granberry captured. We did our level best to get up a fight, but it was no go. Any way we could fix it up. I mean no disrespect to General Hood. He was a noble, brave, and good man, and we loved him for his many virtues and goodness of heart. I do not propose to criticize his generalship or ability as a commander. I only write of the impression and sentiment that were made upon the private's mind at the time, and as I remember them now. But Atlanta had fallen into the hands of the Yankees, and they were satisfied for the time. Death of Lieutenant John Whitaker. At this place we built small breastworks, but for what purpose I never knew. The Yankees seemed determined not to fight. No way we could fix it. Every now and then they would send over a feeler to see how we were getting along. Sometimes these feelers would do some damage. I remember one morning we were away over a hill, and every now and then here would come one of those lazy-looking feelers, just bouncing along as if he were in no hurry, called in military terms a ricochet. They were very easy to dodge if you could see them in time. Well, one morning, as before remarked, Lieutenant John Whitaker, then in command of Company Aytch, and myself were sitting down eating breakfast out of the same tin plate. We were sopping gravy out with some cold cornbread when Captain W. C. Flournoy of the Martin Guards hallooed out, "Look out, Sam! Look! Look!" I just turned my head, and in turning, the cannonball knocked my hat off, and striking Lieutenant Whitaker full in the side of the head, carried away the whole of the skull part, leaving only the face. His brains fell in the plate from which we were sopping, and his head fell in my lap, deluging my face and clothes with his blood. Poor fellow, he never knew what hurt him. His spirit went to its God that morning. Green Reeves carried the poor boy off on his shoulder, and after wrapping him up in a blanket, buried him. His bones are at Jonesboro today. The cannonball didn't go 20 yards after accomplishing its work of death. Captain Flournoy laughed at me and said, "Sam, that came very near getting you. 1/10 of an inch more would have cooked your goose." I saw another man try to stop one of those balls that was just rolling along on the ground. He put his foot out to stop the ball, but the ball didn't stop, but instead carried the man's leg off with it. He no doubt today walks on a cork leg and is tax collector of the county in which he lives. I saw a thoughtless boy trying to catch one in his hands as it bounced along. He caught it, but the next moment his spirit had gone to meet its God. But, poor John, we all loved him. He died for his country. His soul is with his God. He gave his all for the country he loved, and may he rest in peace under the shade of the tree where he is buried, and may the birds sing their sweetest songs, the flowers put forth their most beautiful blooms, while the gentle breezes play about the brave boy's grave. Green Reeves was the only person at the funeral. No tears of a loving mother or gentle sister were there. Green interred his body, and there it will remain till the resurrection. John Whitaker deserves more than a passing notice. He was noble and brave, and when he was killed, Company Aytch was without an officer then commanding. Every single officer had been killed, wounded, or captured. John served as a private soldier the first year of the war, and at the reorganization at Corinth, Mississippi, he, W.J. Whitthorne, and myself all ran for orderly sergeant of Company Aytch, and John was elected, and the first vacancy occurring after the death of Captain Webster, he was commissioned brevet second lieutenant. When the war broke out, John was clerking for John L. and T.S. Brandon in Columbia. He had been in every march, skirmish, and battle that had been fought during the war. Along the dusty road, on the march, in the bivouac, and on the battlefield, he was the same noble, generous boy, always kind, ever gentle, a smile ever lighting up his countenance. He was one of the most even-tempered men I ever knew. I never knew him to speak an unkind word to anyone, or use a profane or vulgar word in my life. One of those ricochet cannonballs struck my old friend, N.B. Shepherd. Shep was one of the bravest and best soldiers who ever shouldered a musket. It is true, he was but a private soldier, but he was the best friend I had during the whole war. In intellect, he was far ahead of most of the generals, and would have honored and adorned the name of general in the Confederate States Army. He was ever brave and true. He followed our cause to the end, yet all the time an invalid. Today he is languishing on a bed of pain and sickness, caused by that ball at Jonesboro. The ball struck him on his knapsack, knocking him 20 feet and breaking 1 or 2 ribs and dislocating his shoulder. He was one of God's noblemen, indeed. None braver, none more generous. God alone controls our destinies, and surely He who watched over us and took care of us in those dark and bloody days will not forsake us now. God alone fits and prepares for us the things that are in store for us. There is none so wise as to foresee the future or foretell the end. God sometimes seems afar off, but He will never leave or forsake anyone who puts his trust in Him. The day will come when the good, as well as the evil, will all meet on one broad platform to be rewarded for the deeds done in the body, when time shall end, with the gates of eternity closed, and the key fastened to the girdle of God forever. Pardon me, reader, I have wandered, but when my mind reverts to those scenes and times, I seem to live in another age and time, and I sometimes think that after us comes the end of the universe. I'm not trying to moralize. I'm only trying to write a few scenes and incidents that came under the observation of a poor old rebel webfoot private soldier in those stormy days and times. Histories tell the great facts, while I only tell of the minor incidents. But on this day of which I now write, we could see in plain view more than 1,000 Yankee battle flags waving on top of the red earthworks, not more than 400 yards off. Every private soldier there knew that General Hood's army was scattered all the way from Jonesboro to Atlanta, a distance of 25 miles without any order, discipline, or spirit to do anything. We could hear General Stuart, away back yonder in Atlanta, still blowing up arsenals and smashing things generally, while Stephen D. Lee was somewhere between Lovejoy Station and Macon, scattering. And here was but a demoralized remnant of Cheatham's corps facing the whole Yankee army. I have ever thought that Sherman was a poor general not to have captured Hood and his whole army at that time, but it matters not what I thought, as I am not trying to tell the ifs and ands, but only of what I saw. In a word, we had everything against us. The soldiers distrusted everything. They were broken down with their long days' hard marching, were almost dead with hunger and fatigue. Everyone was taking his own course, and wishing and praying to be captured. Hard and senseless marching with little sleep, half rations, and lice had made their lives a misery. Each one prayed that all this foolishness might end one way or the other. It was too much for human endurance. Every private soldier knew that such things as this could not last. They were willing to ring down the curtain, put out the footlights, and go home. There was no hope in the future for them.